information from a younger generation about who exactly one of these individuals were. So if you don't know who this is, you can ask your kids and your grandkids or you'll know. But Logan Paul has a podcast. Maybe you're not familiar with Logan Paul, but your kids and grandkids and people are. Logan Paul has more followers on Instagram than either Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Okay, so he's got a lot of influence. So maybe he's not influencing you, but he's got a big audience. And he's an internet personality, YouTuber, and things like that. But he has a podcast. And I came across this podcast because of two guests that he was having on this podcast. First up, the guy's name is Cliff that was on his podcast, which already I like the guy, but he had the E on the end, and I don't, so I was still a little bit unsure. But Cliff and Stuart, and I always mess up their name, but it's like Connectually. Those two guys, these Christian preachers, were on his podcast. So I was like, well, I want to listen to this. Because those two guys, the father and the son, they're pretty popular on social media. They'll do preaching on college campuses. And they'll have like a group of people on a quad out front of, I don't know, the dorms at UCLA, and be preaching and let the audience challenge them, and they'll reply back. But it's not the normal street preacher kind of craziness you see. You're like, yeah, I'm not associated with that guy. They're not holding up signs that say God hates certain people. And they have a good dialogue. And I've always been impressed with how they answered those questions. So I was like, I got to listen to this podcast. I recommend you check it out. I will caution you, sometimes language on podcasts that are secular isn't going to be ones that you would agree with, but the arguments were very good that were presented. But in this podcast, Logan Paul was asking these brothers questions about Christianity, questions about the afterlife, questions about gay marriage, and some hot button things. And they did a very good job answering those questions. And one of the questions that he asked his guest was, why are you a Christian? I was like, that's a very good question to ask people who say they're Christians, right? Why are you a Christian? And Cliff, the answer that he gave was, well, first and foremost, I am a Christian because of Jesus Christ and the reality of his resurrection. I thought, that's an awesome answer. And then he went into talking about, the testimony of the apostles and evidence for the resurrection. And he said, because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, I follow him today. I was like, that is a very good answer. And I was kind of thinking, how would I answer that same question? Because in my mind, I'm always going to be interviewed somewhere, and I got to be able to answer these questions, right? So I was like, how would I answer that question? Why am I a Christian? Well, I would say I am a Christian, too, because of Jesus. I am a Christian because I believe Jesus is the fullness of deity, the Godhead, the Trinity in bodily form. I believe that. I am a Christian because I believe that Jesus came to this earth, was born of a virgin, that's that incarnation. He came in that human form, but while he was here, he lived a perfect and sinless life. Jesus preached about repentance. He preached about the kingdom. He preached about love. Jesus fulfilled countless predictive prophecies. We actually talked about one this morning in our Bible class in the book of Luke. Jesus even predicted his own death and resurrection, and it came true. He said he was going to die and that he was going to raise 3 days later, and he did. And numerous eyewitnesses attest to that fact, and billions of people follow him to this day. Because of that, I am a Christian, because I believe that Jesus is Lord and that he rose from the dead. Thankfully, I will tell you there's a lot of people that believe that. They believe that about Jesus. They believe that he's Lord. They believe that he rose from the dead. Where I do find, though, some struggles, especially in our culture, because even though I know we're not as rooted in Christendom as maybe we once were as a society, the amount of people that go to church on Sunday versus the amount of people that went to church on Sunday 50 years ago is definitely less. However, at its core, most families, most people in our country probably at least acknowledge a belief in Jesus, although that is getting less. Where it's hard to make a leap, though, and the reason why we see not a lot of church attendance and why a lot of people, would identify as a religious nun or something along those lines, not nun, N-U-N, but nun, N-O-N-E, is because they don't buy in to Christianity. They believe in Jesus, but they would probably say, I'm just not sure about this whole Christian thing, the Christianity thing, the lifestyle, the church going. And I will tell you, sometimes they have legitimate objections. Okay, maybe what they were brought up in, a church that they were brought up in, was a bad environment, and it drove them away from Jesus. I've seen that happen. Maybe they saw a lot of hypocrisy in the home. Mom or dad preached one thing on Sunday at church and then acted a whole different way on the car ride home. You know, that kind of thing drives people away from the faith. Maybe a religious leader that they looked up to had some kind of a scandal. That happens. Maybe the church that they were a part of no longer existed and they kind of just drifted out of that in some way, or different things along the lines. A lot of times people will say, I believe in Jesus, but I'm just not that sure with Christianity or the church. Or they would say, I'm just not convinced that Christianity is good. And I think that's an objection that you see a lot of times nowadays. I mentioned this before in Bible class, that we're used to trying to convince people that they believe in God or they follow the Bible, but now you got to even convince people that religion in general could be good. Because a lot of people are being taught and brought up to believe that religion's bad. That all the ills of society are because of religion. That all the things that make people unhappy and unfulfilled is because of oppressive religious teaching. So therefore, I don't want anything to do with that Christianity. You'll hear people say things like that. So what I want to do this morning is I want to give you a few things, a few teachings, a few points to maybe keep in your back pocket about why Christianity is good. Not just why Christianity, but why it is good. Because I believe you're probably, for the most part, are maybe going to find people that do believe in Jesus in some extent. You can teach them about him, but making the leap from believing in Jesus to believing in his people and his church and his kingdom and all of that is sometimes a leap because a lot of people don't realize the goodness that comes from Christianity. And maybe we just need to be better marketers. Maybe we haven't done a good job in showing people the goodness of Christianity. Because maybe what we have showed the world as a representation of Christianity is church services. So someone in this town drives through this community on Sunday and they see all these church buildings down Caldwell. We're on Church Row, right? We got a whole bunch of them. And they see parking lots full of people that ascribe to Christianity. And then they go, well, what are they doing? What's good about that? What's good about showing up to a location, going into a meeting house, a building, whatever it is, and going to some kind of a service, feeling pretty good at the end of it, and then leaving and going to Del Taco, because that's where I'm going to go for lunch, right? What's good about that? Maybe what we have presented to the world is not good advertisement for Christianity. So here's 3 things this morning that I think you can use to share with people to show them why Christianity is good and why they should check it out. Number 1 this morning, and I've mentioned these ideas before. I went back over some notes that I had done. Some of the slides from this sermon actually came from the last sermon we did before COVID shut things down. We were having a Friends Day here at this church. And the goal was to bring a bunch of friends in on March the 15th for a Friends Day to have people talk about why should they consider Christianity. And then everything kind of fell apart, and we had to do spacing in the pews, and we're trying to figure out what we're supposed to do with communion, and we canceled Bible class. It was, that weird transitional time. That was the last time we addressed this kind of topic. And it was so unique that it came in, and that the first slide that I presented on that Friends Day kind of might be a preparation. I don't know if God had a hand in this, but it was Christianity provides hope during times of crisis. This is a message that we need to get out there to the world. That Christianity helps you go through hard times. Because so many people, when the world is falling apart around them, their life falls apart. And I think we can show evidence from our own lives and from the testimony of other people who've also gone through times of crisis, how Christianity can see you through. James chapter 1, this is the brother of Jesus. He said this. He said, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Trials are hard times, right? Trials of many times. Because knowing that, many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. When you go through tough times, keeping your faith during those tough times will make you stronger. We know that mentally, but emotionally we have a hard time wrapping our minds around that. But Christianity allows for you to get through those difficult times. And story after story throughout history, and maybe people even in your own life, when they've gone through a hard time, the thing that they said saw them through was their faith in Jesus Christ. that Christianity and the church and the support group and those people is what helped them get through that difficult time. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12 through 13 says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you." He goes, look, it's going to be rough. The people Peter's writing to were going to be severely persecuted for their faith. We got it easy. We've gone soft, but they were going to be severely persecuted. And he says, don't even act like it's something strange that's happening to you. I told you it was going to happen. So when there's a death, when there's an illness, when there's persecution, when there's pain, when there's suffering, he says, but rejoice insofar as you share in Christ's sufferings, and that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. Yes, we will go through hard times. They did. There's no promise that we're not, but we can get through it knowing that we're sharing in those sufferings with Jesus. Romans chapter 8, verse 18 says, "For I consider the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." So when everything falls apart around you, because it might, maybe you haven't had to deal with a crazy tragedy in your life yet. Maybe you haven't had to have suffering or pain or fear, or everything's just kind of been okay. If it does happen and you are suffering, know that whatever you're going through now is not worth comparing to the glory that's going to be revealed. Yes, this life might stink. It might be horrible at times. But glory is to be revealed. That's why Christianity is good, because it gives us that hope. That, hey, we can get through this, and even if it kills us, which it did a lot of our brethren, glory that's going to be revealed is better. Christianity is good because it provides hope during times of crisis. Number 2, this morning, Christianity is good because Christianity provides care for those in need. People sometimes ask me, and maybe it makes us uncomfortable to ask those questions, but questions like, hey, how come one church over here is growing and maybe ours isn't? That's a question people ask. And or why one religious group is growing versus another. I'll tell you that the best advertisement for a church and the best way to grow a church, and although church growth for the sake of church growth is not what our goal is serving Jesus, but a church that is doing good for other people is a church that's going to be making a difference and an impact on their community. Christianity at its core is supposed to be that type of a church, that type of a group. Because when I see in Scripture, what I see is Christians were those that helped others, that cared for others. And one thing that I do when I'm trying to get people to consider Christianity is I ask about their own heart. I ask about their own concern. I ask them about what do they care about. And I ask them, do you hurt when others hurt? Do you get angry when you see hate in the world? Do you have a passion for helping others? Are you socially conscious? Do you believe there's more to this life than self-seeking? Do you want to make a difference? There's a lot of people out there in our town right now that fall into that. This is their heart. That is a good heart. That's people that have a heart that aligns with the heart of Jesus. What we need to be able to do then is show them that the best way to take that desire that you have and fulfill it is in Christianity, because we're supposed to be the people that are doing that good. But so often we kind of leave that to the charities and we go, well, we host worship services, right? But we're supposed to be those that are providing for those in need. And that's what's good about Christianity. And historically, that's what we've been all about. Think about hospitals that are built in the name of churches and Christians. Think about charities and organizations that have been started in the name of Christ. During the Roman Empire, the Bible talks a lot about taking care of widows and orphans. During the Roman Empire time, so 1st century, 2nd century there, one of the things that was very common was if you had a child that you didn't want, you know what you would do? Is you lay it outside on the road or in a trash heap for the child to either be picked up into slavery or die. And you know what the early church did? They would gather those children and they would take care of them, caring for the orphans. That's what Christianity did. Why is it that the book of 1 Timothy has like an entire chapter about how the church can practically take care of widows? Like literally, like what age should you enroll them and all this kind of stuff. Because the early church, Christians, took care of the widows because no one else was taking care of them. In Acts, we talk about, the appointment of those that we sometimes think are deacons and all of that. It talks about the serving of the Grecian widows. They were providing food to those in need. Christianity is supposed to be good. It is good, and it works when we're out there providing care for those in need. Think about what Scripture says. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 16 says, "Do not neglect to do good and share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God." Philippians chapter 2, verse 4 says, "Let each of you not look only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others." And then in 1 John chapter 3, verse 17, it says, "But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him?" And then a passage that I know you're familiar with, again from the brother of Jesus, James chapter 2. It says, "If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says, 'Go in peace, be warmed and filled,'" that's basically saying, "I'll pray for you." He's saying, "without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead." What makes Christianity good is Christians are about serving others. And the reason why maybe Christianity isn't growing in some places as fast as we think it should, it's because we haven't been focused on that. We become very self-serving. We become, an organization built to maintain the organization. And yet what makes Christianity so good is we go out. So if you care about the downtrodden, Christianity is for you. If you care about those that are hurting, Christianity is for you. If you care about the imprisoned, the immigrant, the disabled, the ill, the elderly, the orphan, the widow, if you care about them, Christianity is for you. Because even in the Old Testament, and Jesus repeats the same idea, says, "For I desire mercy and not sacrifice, an acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings." What makes Christianity good is at its core is two big commands: love God and love others. So what makes Christianity good is Christianity provides care for those in need. Number one, Christianity provides hope during times of suffering. Number two, Christianity provides care for those in need. And then finally, number three, Christianity provides purpose in our lives. People are looking for meaning. People are looking for purpose. People are asking questions, and they always have and always will. But I think even more so, people are looking for an answer. It's an election season. People are looking for whatever political leader to be that one to give them purpose and meaning. When sometimes it's career we think will finally give you purpose and meaning, or that it's money, or that it's power, or that it's the next relationship that'll give me purpose and meaning in life. People are looking for answers. I kind of went on this deep dive last week and kind of this idea of questions and what makes us human and souls and all that. And they came across this article, and they were talking about how they teach primates like apes and stuff sign language. And they'll teach them sign language, which is totally cool, by the way. But they've never asked a question. They'll ask for food, give me banana or something like that. But they've never asked for comprehension or understanding. Why am I here? Or things like that. Those are questions that humans ask. The only animal that they may think has ever asked a question was a parrot who asked, "What color is me?" when looking at his reflection, but the parrot was really smart and knew colors. But even then, that's not an existential question. But that's idea of questions of life. We as humans, not animals, but humans, ask questions like, why am I here? What's my purpose? How do I find meaning? What's going to make me happy? What's going to bring me joy? Is it all been worth it? Have I been wasting my time? These are all questions we ask, right? Christianity provides that purpose to life. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, it says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." I don't know what to do with my life. Hey, just declare the praises of God wherever you go. There's something good you can do. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, it says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." What's your purpose? to do good works. Declare God's praises. Do good works. And you know what? Love. We love because he first loved us. 1 John chapter 4, verse 19. That is your purpose. That's why you are here. That gives us meaning and direction in life. So maybe you don't get the job you want. Maybe the relationship failed. Maybe you're sick. Maybe you're tired. Maybe the world's falling apart around you. You can know that you have a purpose in declaring God's mercies to the world, in serving other people, and in love. By doing that, your life will have meaning because Christianity provides purpose in our lives, and that purpose goes back to that main idea of loving God and loving others. So what can we wrap up this morning? Why Christianity? Why is Christianity good? Why should someone consider this? Because Christianity provides hope, Christianity provides care, and Christianity provides purpose. So back at that podcast and the questions that were answered, you can tell that the hosts of the podcast were kind of intrigued a little bit about those answers, about the idea of how to find meaning and why you're a Christian, who is Jesus. And I know they're not alone in that. They're just, celebrities and popular, and obviously they have a bigger platform. But I think all of us are asking questions like that. So if you're here this morning and you feel like you're lost, you're confused, you're searching for meaning in life, you're just wondering why or how or what, let me encourage you to follow Jesus. Because following Jesus, that's Christianity. We follow him and do what he said. That'll give you purpose and meaning to your life. So if you feel like life is a little meaningless right now, you're kind of having your Ecclesiastes season, as I heard it was called at a lectureship a couple weeks ago, where you're kind of just like, woe is me. I go through that. Everything's kind of down. It's all pointless. Turn to Jesus. Look to following him. And I believe your life will have meaning. And I think this fits very well with our theme for the year, which is look to the Lord and his strength.